Hey everyone, Cami Westall here, and I just wanted to give you kind of a visual overview of what was going on in Europe during World War II, since the book doesn't do a great job of that. This is definitely not my PowerPoint. I assume it's this Combat Studies Institute, but we'll go with that. I can't give accurate credit, but it's a great visual here. So, if we've got our map of Europe here, and Germany with Hitler establishing the Third Reich, will become a Nazi state. And one of the first things that Hitler does is take over the Rhineland, which was one of the things he was prohibited from doing per the Treaty of Versailles after World War I. So Nazi Germany, already expanding, then goes into Austria, the basis of the Sound of Music stuff with the von Trapp family having to escape to Switzerland and then the United States. Then after that, he announced that he wants the Sudetenland. The Munich conference allowed him to do that in the fall of 1938. That was when Neville Chamberlain prematurely proclaimed that they had secured peace for their time by appeasing Hitler in that famous example of appeasement from the Munich conference. And then they realized they had messed up, because what does Hitler do after taking the Sudetenland? Takes over the rest of Czechoslovakia. So Nazi Germany quickly expanding. Italy starts to, under Mussolini, it becomes a powerful fascist state. And then we get the invasion of Poland in September of 1939, really considered the starting point of World War II, that Hitler would invade Poland on September 1st. Per the Nazi-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact, Hitler only took half, and Stalin, under Soviet control, took over the other half of Poland. And at this point, on September 3rd, France and Britain will declare war on Germany. They had known Hitler would go one way or the other. And so France then, after war is proclaimed, builds the Maginot Line, thinking that we'll have some trench warfare as we did in World War I. So this super trench on steroids. France not prepared for the type of blitzkrieg that the Germans are using in World War II, that they also used over Poland. So then Hitler goes up through Denmark and into Norway. All of that falls under Nazi control. Now the Germans on the move in the spring of 1940. Parts of the Netherlands and Belgium ripped apart. And then the invasion of France begins. And by early summer of 1940, France has fallen under Nazi control. The Vichy state in the south of France, North Africa, so where you get the Casablanca stuff from with Humphrey Bogart. So we've seen pretty much all of Europe, Spain doing its own thing with Franco down there, Europe falling under Nazi control, under Italian control. Britain really Hitler's only opponent at this point, since he's had the Nazi-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact with the Soviet Union. Then that leads to the Battle of Britain after Operation Sea Lion, which was Sea Lion being Hitler's failed effort to invade England. And so after the Battle of Britain, that's really Hitler's first setback, losing over 1,600 planes. So England remaining firmly entrenched in this. That was when Churchill had thanked the Royal Air Force and saying never has so much been owed to so few by so many, thanking the Air Force for their work. England tries to go down to the Greek area. They're not going to do so well there as the Nazis continue to push down in the Balkan region, England having to retreat. So now even more land falling under Nazi occupation. Some more activity down in the Mediterranean. Things not going well for England. Here's where Hitler makes one of his fatal mistakes. A lot of activity there. 1941, this is part of Operation Barbarossa. And in Operation Barbarossa, Hitler attacked the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union and Stalin had fallen under the same spell as the rest of Europe at the Munich Agreement by trusting Adolf Hitler and his asymmetrical mustache. And now Hitler has taken even more land. But this is going to be problematic because now there are going to be a lot of Red Army folks from the Soviet Union fighting here. And as we get to the end of 1941, the United States will officially enter into combat when Germany declares war on us as part of the tripartite pact when we went to war with Japan. So now we've got into early 1942, the Americans and the British fighting down in North Africa, part of this in Tunisia, as we allow this, as we don't strike quickly into direct confrontation in Europe. We're happy to let the Soviets do that while the United States is fighting in Asia against Japan. Here we go into Tunisia, gaining back land from the Nazis in North Africa, and then we'll end up starting to push north from North Africa into Italy. George Patton and General Montgomery from England there, moving up into Italy, making progress there as Mussolini's troops run into problems. Still pushing up the boot of Italy like a gangrene on the foot. The Soviet Union pushing back in Eastern Europe, the Red Army versus the Nazis there. Now we start the United States and England some aerial bombardments over Germany and over Central Europe. This is stuff like with the Memphis Belle, the flights that would depart from the U.S., drop bombs over a lot of civilian places in Germany and return. So dropping bombs but not directly attacking the heart of Europe, still moving up the boot. Now, more bombings, aerial combat. Red Army making progress. And now here we go with our paratroopers coming in over Normandy, the D-Day invasion in 1944, in June of 44, to start to open a Western front as part of Operation Overlord. Germany not sending in reinforcements very quickly there. Where? Starting to release parts of France. Nazis being pushed back here. Soviets pushed back here because now the Germans are having to send more reinforcements to the Western Front. So that means you've reduced the number of troops on the Eastern Front. And now we're kind of into this race to Berlin in late 44 and into 1945. Who's going to get there first, the Americans and the British or the Soviets? So more activity. Gradually, Berlin's not giving up. Hitler's still there. The Soviets making more progress, controlling these parts of Eastern Europe that they're not going to be happy to turn back over after World War II ends. Where's the movement? Lots of activity in this war-heavy part of the world where there's been so much fighting in World War I and World War II. Soviets getting closer. United States getting to the Rhine. George Patton famously urinating in the Rhine River. Just outside of Berlin, Mussolini is going to be captured and murdered, and Hitler will commit suicide a couple of days later. And then we will get our zones of occupation following the conclusion of World War II, that Berlin will be divided up 4 ways in the Soviet Union zone. England will have a zone, the United States, the French will also have zones of occupation to oversee the rebuilding of Germany, and that will lead us pretty directly into the Cold War, as again the Soviet Union will be reluctant to give up that land in Eastern Europe, and thus we get the Iron Curtain there separating Western Europe from communist-controlled Eastern Europe. But there was just kind of a little bit more of a visual rundown of what was going on in the conflict in Europe.